Well, in the realm of Bigfoot, there's so many thoughts, ideas, theories about what they are, where they came from, what their purpose is. It can get really, really confusing. And, I've got my own thoughts, and I'm sure you do too. Some of it we share, some of it we kind of just internalize. But if you guys are ready to take a head dive down a very deep Bigfoot rabbit hole with us, I'd invite you to stick around today, because I think it'll be pretty interesting.
They've been very present since we were here last, thumping on windows and in the house. not causing harm, just kind of saying we're here. They respond immediately.
So how many names are there for them? We call them the Bigfoot, big guys. Of course, there's Sasquatch, wood booger, sabe, skunk ape.
A lot of people associate gugwees and things like that, but I don't feel like they're the same class.
There's alien names that have been given to them. There are a multitude of Native American names across the country, but I think for the sake of simplicity, we just either call them Bigfoot or the big guys because everyone is familiar with that terminology. So
you'll hear me calling them the people because a long time ago when I asked on Coup what they preferred to be called, he just said the people. And I think the names like Janu, many of the names that have been given to them probably interpret in those languages to the people.
So, are they animal?
Yes.
Are they spirit?
Yes.
Are they alien?
Yes.
Are they animal, vegetable, mineral, ethereal?
Yes, yes.
There's portion of people that think they're just animal, flesh and blood, bleed, just animal, and that they're so stealthy and fast and have all these agile abilities that they just can't be pinned down. It's hard for me to fall into that basic animal category, given that here in 2024 we've got technology that is just incredible, and you can track a beetle crawling across the ground. To not be able to find something that is anywhere from 8 to 12 foot tall, from 400 to say 900 pounds, that would be impossible for me to fathom that one hasn't been pinned down if it was solely animal.
They've always described themselves, and Anku specifically, as just always said interdimensional beings.
And that's the category that I fall into. We've seen...
Your thoughts?
Yeah, we've seen so many different aspects of appearing out of nowhere, disappearing into nowhere. Of course, we've obviously seen the footprints, found little tufts of hair, found evidence of where
the physicality,
the physical part of them has touched something or, interacted in that regard.
But even those footprints will just be intermittent. It'll be so many and then poof.
And then disappear into nothingness. And we've also seen their complete shadow figure walk across the trail and stop in front of us.
Or their reflection against the sunlight, where there's a shape, but it shimmers in the light. And there are not easy ways to explain these things to anyone. We're still seeking our own explanations.
Most of what we're talking about is based on our own experiences, our own interactions, our own thoughts and feelings about all of this.
And those will likely be different than others.
And it does evolve as we see other things and learn, as we go, which should be a requisite for anybody. You shouldn't be so closed off to think it's just one specific way. It's kind of like you go down a highway, and at this point on the highway you can see so far, and that's your reality. That's what you know for the moment. But then you go a little farther and more opens up to you. Mm-hmm. And before long you realize that the environment you're in now is a complete transformation from the environment that you were in an hour ago. Anyone that's driven across country can wrap their head around that. It's a process of learning, experiencing, and acknowledgement. But it all comes down to energy. Energy is the ghost that fuels everything. Everything around us is based on energy. The old saying that energy cannot die, it can only transform. Well, if something has the ability to harness any and all of the energy around them, then they have the ability to transform themselves, at will.
And some would call that shape-shifting. It could be a variety of things. It could be from a nothing to a light or an orb. It could be their life essence just reflecting in their space. It can be, but even human spirit, in the idea of ghosts, in the idea of, some of that is on a recall or like a loop of memory, and we know that certain stones or geographical
certain places, elements, like we've brought up the quartz that's in the ground natural to this area and to a lot of areas of the country. Quartz holds a memory, it holds information, data, and it can create a loop effect where, say, a ghost story, for instance, where something just appears and keeps repeating a pattern over and over again, but it doesn't interact with anyone or
it's
anything
not intelligent, as they would call it.
It's just a loop repeating itself, that coming from a stored memory of a location or the ground or whatever.
And most often, those cases, at least in our experience, are based on severe joy, severe trauma, severe fear. It imprints not only the earth and the elements, whether it's quartz or just certain things, are natural record keepers. So that's easy enough for us to understand. Intelligent, what we would know to be intelligent beings, whether human spirit or, say, cryptids, have a very interacting element to them, but they may also be more capable. Is that the word I want? More capable of doing this in an environment that's conducive to their energy. This is just all kind of coming in, and I have to translate it.
Something that feeds their energy.
Mm-hmm.
They can draw off of. Of course, on a very rudimentary level, out here in the woods, for instance, we've gone along with brand new fresh batteries in the camera equipment, microphone equipment.
Brand new microphones.
And within 15 or 20 minutes, it is just completely flatlined. All of the energy has been drawn out of it.
Or we have huge static. That's the experience we had the last time we came out. We weren't audibly hearing interference, although we did notice a change in the atmosphere.
The environment around us.
And I think that's what we're capable of as human beings, is being able to detect those
nuances.
Nuances in our space, whether that's out here in the woods or at home or wherever we are, wherever you are. And it was about that same time that we just started getting
all the static feedback through the microphones.
Either muted or static or whatever it was. And we had to cut a lot of it out because it was bad enough. But I believe, because we've experienced this before with different sets of mics, we've tried a variety of things to avoid it. Probably isn't going to happen.
And today we've got an entirely brand new system of microphones to use out here. So we'll see as time goes on if there's interference with that.
But I think when their energy gets closer to our energy, it creates, we call it interference, but it's just
an electromagnetic field.
A field, correct. And our electronics are susceptible to that crossed field. Nothing bad.
Just like we as humans and our own internal energy are susceptible to those same fields. You know, we've talked about the effects of infrasound or ultrasound, but there's also the effects of the energy, the electromagnetic field, what they're either feeding into or drawing away from. And to help you kind of understand that, and I know everyone has experienced this, say there's a group of you and you're just hanging out at someone's house and everyone is just in a nice, even, placid mood, and all of a sudden little Debbie Downer shows up with all of her chaos. She's a drama mama. You know, she's in 20, 30 minutes has brought the mood of the entire group into, I just want to run away and get away from you. It's like this energy vampire just feeding off of your soul.
And they may just be thinking they're looking for support, and they are, but the support they draw is your energy.
So inherently, we know this because we will say, that's a very negative person. So internally, inherently, we know negative, positive, And we use those terms, but it slips past us a lot of times, and we don't really take it to heart
with
exactly what's going on.
Sure.
So
and we want to be supportive.
So on the same regard, you've got that same group just hanging out, chilling out. All of a sudden, here comes Andy Adderall. He's all jacked up like he had a 12-pack of Mountain Dew. I mean, he's bouncing off the walls, telling jokes. He's all in a high spirit, and it lifts everybody up in the room.
For a while.
But then you would say, well, he's a very positive individual. Well, even if that's his natural state of being or if it's chemically induced, regardless, at that moment, he is putting out positive energy.
But either one, in my experience, after whatever period of time, and it does vary with us as individuals, but after whatever period of time, we've had enough. Like, we've met a barrier, whether that's on the left side or the right side of who we are. We've met a barrier to what we can
You can either go down so far or go up so far, but eventually you have to level out. And most people, the average person across the board, in just a resting, normal state, generates about 100 watts of electricity. That's like when we were kids and we saw Uncle Fester on TV put the light bulb in his mouth and bang, there you go. The thing of it is, when we're in our natural relaxed state, we're neither positive or negative. We're neutral. It's a neutral energy until something affects that.
Yes.
Something comes in supercharged or super down or whatever it is. So how does this play into the whole Bigfoot thing? They can utilize any and all of the energy around them. They will mirror off of what you're feeling. And we've said so many times, don't go into it with fear, because then that mirror back to you will be the fear-based emotions, the fear-based feelings,
in the same way,
and can create those instances where you have those negative encounters. Whereas on the other side, if you're upbeat and positive, they're playing off of that, and that's what you
very playful.
Get back in return.
And I think that there's a lot of truth in that. And in the same way that their very hair, if they're in a physical form, reflects the shade and gives more shadow element or a more profound physical experience in some ways if they're in a proper space. Or if they're in the sunlight and it mirrors, literally, it's shimmer. They look like shimmer beings when they go across in the sunlight. And they're just as active in the daytime as we've experienced as they are at night. It's just that at night, it's easier for them. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the energy, whether that's from the moon or the earth itself responding to that, or the ability to be very stealthy and not risk reactions.
I think it's easier to manipulate or to access that ethereal plane at nighttime.
After certain hours, yes.
This is something I haven't even told you about, but it's recently, since I had my surgery, since I had the near-death experience, I get my best, most restful sleep in the afternoon. If I lay down and take a nap from, say, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, it's like I've had 8 hours of full night's sleep. Mm-hmm. But ever since that experience happened in the hospital, at nighttime when I lay down,
you're restless.
My mind is 1,000 miles an hour. I dream wild, crazy, lucid, full spectrum color and sound dreams all night long. It's just like I am plugged into data central, and I'm just repeatedly, night after night, all this information just, sometimes it's just overwhelming. I'll get up and go outside and sit on the porch at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning just because I can't get back into a sleep pattern. And that's only happened since that incident occurred. I don't know if other people that have had a near-death experience have experienced that type of thing afterward that's similar.
And if you know, please let us know, because it's, you know, little things that make all the difference in our world. And, you know, with the people, I also feel Anku has said that they have a very nuclear, I'm going to use that word for lack of a better word, nuclear essence, which is why in one EVP, we were over here, it was when Junior ran up behind, you can just hear him. I mean, he was just loud and proud, but you saw nothing. And just past him, there was an entire energy that walked. It reflected the sun for a moment, and then it also, only briefly as it approached the tree line, took a more shadow type form, but it was all so very fast. We tried to slow that down, and even in its slowest frames with what we have to use, you can't slow it down enough. But the thing that we heard on EVP was check the Great One, check the darkness too. They call the sun the Great One. Now, in Anku relaying that they are very nuclear in their energy, to the point that they could have a somewhat radioactive essence about them.
Well, there's been a multitude of reports where they have seen them around nuclear plants.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're pulling, recharging, you know, so to speak, recharging, pulling
and
energy.
A lot of those are at night where that sun is not accessible. So there's actual mathematics that goes with these people. It's just that we haven't been able to connect all the dots. Part of why they only get within certain proximity of us, I believe, is because they don't want to risk our exposure to that kind of energy in a way that could be dangerous. I do think that they probably, especially the more evolved, probably have ways of containing.
I just heard a grunt.
Containing a certain amount of that, or shielding a certain amount of that, in the same way we can learn how to shield our own energy. But the young ones particularly, or these that haven't been taught completely about this stuff, might be a greater risk. And I know when I have felt the young ones run up on us as we've walked the trail, it's almost this sense of being pushed, and it's not, but that's the effect that it has energetically when they just run up. And even that day that Junior did that,
And
I mean,
sure
it was like, holy criminy.
And I'm sure that has a lot to do with people that have reported when they've had an encounter, if it's, say, one that's more negative, how they get that nauseous feeling, that headache feeling, that kind of sick afterward feeling, and maybe it's just bleed over from that energy.
And it could be. And there are a lot of reports I noticed of individuals that see one of the big guys, let's say, and there's a very fearful experience around that. It's a violent or more violent energy or aggressive energy. And they report that they see UFO activity simultaneously. And I asked Anku about this because we've had some odd mechanical sounds. We've had some things that made us wonder if it was just in the realm of what we would call invisibility. But I asked him about those specifically, and he only replied, in Exile. And I do believe they, no differently than we, have individuals that break certain rules that they have, and they literally will exile them from their realm. Unfortunately, and it may not only be the earth plane, but unfortunately,
well, see,
but when you think about it, this is a much more limited plane than probably where they are.
Oh, yeah. But
their purgatory, their hell.
My other thought regarding that, when we're talking about energy, is like attracts like. And if you're multidimensional and you're a beacon, you're going to attract other multidimensional energies. So that could be part of it.
Mm-hmm. But I think their nature, and they've explained, I'm sorry, I should credit Anku with what Anku has produced, have explained that there are those that have been earthbound long enough, perhaps they've seen a side of man that hasn't been as positive or as open-minded. Maybe somebody taking shots at them or destroying their habitat without permission to be a part of it to begin with. All of these things that we, little by little, are learning are important. And in the same way that we have a cellular memory, a genetic memory, I believe they do as well. And not all of them have had those positive experiences or have a more evolved nature that says that there can be a coexistence. We've been blessed with the family we work with because not only are they exceptionally evolved, but they also love to laugh, love to have fun, love to be present in our life in a positive way. They're very healing in their nature. They're sharing, a lot of sharing. And I just got the bumps. If we start getting interference, I feel like a couple have come a little closer. But they're also great respecters of person. And if you do have a relationship with them, one thing I do know that seems to be a universal law is their oath. If you make an oath with these people, you have to keep it. I mean, it's just not even optional to break your word, because that is a very big deal to them, and feeling like their sacred space is sacred.
Theirs.
Yeah. You know, we've been blessed that they have allowed us to share it, but we've had to go through a number of tests and trials and things to prove to them that our word is golden with them. Any thoughts on that?
My mind was in another direction, but, the question of where did they come from, how did they come into being, all of this, our personal thought, it's that interdimensional, but that still doesn't nail down exactly where.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that are on that it's an animal kind of view, they will say, well, it's a throwback off of Gigantopithecus, or it's, one of the undiscovered great apes or something like this. Of course, we read a lot, we research a lot, take a lot of different things into consideration, like the Anunnaki story. Mm-hmm. And in one major part of that, talking about how the Anunnaki had created the slave labor to mine the gold out of the ground, and they used the existing primates that were there to create the humans, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's in part of the Anunnaki story. But it also goes on to say that they experimented on different versions, different types, until they got it to a controllable species that would do the work and the mining and all that. So
I don't feel
is that a possibility? I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it's not, but is that a possibility that these are one of those experimental?
Well, and when we first started really communicating with the family, I had asked Anku, where are you from? And the response I got was Nebula. And at first I thought, well, maybe that's the name of a place, a planet. Nebula is a star. If you get into the physics of that, much like the sun, it's a nuclear energy, and he has since attributed their element to be that of fire. Not earth, not water, not air, but fire. And when you think about the Big Bang, and we think about radiation, we think about all of these things, angels, we know, were created out of protons of light. And these, I believe, in their origins at least, were created out of an element of fire, but more to the effect of electricity. Because electricity is a form of fire, and I think that's why they work with the electromagnetic energy the way they do. Again, we're still finding our own answers. But in that stardust, and that's one thing we do have in common, because we too have
our stardust.
We have gold in our bodies in the same way, and to that effect, they consider us all as one because everything has that essence about it. And it goes forward and backward and up, down, round, round. I mean, there's so much. But nothing is out of the realm of possibility. They love to work with the electromagnetic equipment that we bring out, whether that's a camera or the EMF detector. They love to show off with it. It's easy for them, and it's not threatening.
And in the same regard, sound and frequencies. And is sound a wave? Is sound a frequency? Is it both? It is something that can be manipulated by electromagnetic fields. We were talking the other night about white noise. Remember, a lot of us older generation, at nighttime after midnight and the national anthem played and the TV went to that white noise, and you'd fall asleep to it. A lot of people use it to relax because it's just like having a humming fan or something in your room. That droning sound helps you get into that hypnotic sleep phase. But that white noise is also a wide open conduit to allow energies to come and go. Or communicate. A lot of paranormal things have happened with white noise as a background. A lot of things that happen at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with that white noise playing on that TV when we were young. That's when the spooks came out.
What was it, the movie Poltergeist? No.
Yeah.
Carol Ann?
Yeah.
On the TV.
The white noise on the TV. That's an example of that. That I had even kind of, and I think I'm serious about it now, but I initially jokingly said, well, I can play some white noise out here on my phone and then set a voice recorder.
See if we pick up EVP simultaneously.
6 or 10 feet away and see if any type of EVPs, any type of communication comes through off of that. And I might just try that now that I'm thinking about it.
Doesn't hurt. Usually when they use it in the realm of metaphysics now, they're blocking off the other senses, the vision. They're making it so that's the only sense that's actively being used, where it's much more funneled to the human body. But I'm a little hesitant to try it on a personal level, being a natural channel. I don't know, I'm really cautious with a lot of things. But it works, and I don't discredit it. I just don't know that it's right for me personally, but I would love to experiment with the recorders and things like that and see if that doesn't help. And we have had a number of EVPs that were not the people, that were not the big guys.
But
we've had Native American, we've had...
You have to remember we're in an area that is very conducive to
super,
pretty much everything.
super magnetic energy through here.
So the next question, and I don't know if there is an actual bona fide answer for it, but I know it's been asked by a lot of people. Is there some underlying big agenda that they have? Are they here for a specific reason, or are they just here to exist?
Okay, says ours?
Yeah.
I don't feel like they all have the same agenda, depending on what class or what background.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me the word love. There are a certain number of these beings that are here to not only... It's more than just reflecting your internal process, whether that's love or fear, whatever it is. And those are like two palms on. We either operate out of love or we operate out of fear. And the way that he's showing it is they are present to heal our hearts, open our hearts, and give us the ability to know there is that one mind, one love.
I hear to experience that absolute, to experience that, yeah, everything is...
To get past our barriers
everything
is the sense
connected.
that I get. To get past our barriers that we've been taught or raised up in. For these, their agenda is connection. Their agenda is to show more.
And it's a very challenging thing for human beings because in our 3D realm, it's hard to really, really know or get a grasp on something that we can't taste, see, smell,
what we're accustomed to.
Touch, any of that. You know, so
getting past the tangible. Mm-hmm.
Being able to open up beyond that.
And I believe that's what it's all about, because when you consider source energy, he says, when you consider source energy, it's technically tangible around you, in your world, but most, he's saying most, don't relate this thing or this experience to be source energy. So I think what they're trying to do incrementally is the word I'm given in group or with specific individuals that can find a way to communicate it. Because they might be limited with whomever they can communicate with and get that point across. But what I'm understanding is that it's to try to open us up to see source energy in everything. Everything we view, everything we smell, everything we taste, everything we touch.
It has its own energy, it has its own vibration. And just like the trees here around us, it's an energy vibrating at its own frequency to pull the matter into the form of what we call a tree or anything else around us. The same law applies to everything. It's energy oscillating at a frequency, controlling a specific matter that is encoded to it to form into what we see. Well, if you have that key to where you can manipulate that, you can transform into anything that you really...
you can shift. He said you can shift. Everyone has the potential of, quote-unquote, being a shapeshifter, and it isn't about scary beings. He's not talking about that. He's talking about if you sit at the base of this, well, this is a sapling, but if you sit at the base of a tree and you really focus on that tree and become a part of that environment, that tree, that space, realistically, you can just blend into it.
And most of you already know this if you've ever been out in the woods to deer hunt or turkey hunt or whatever it is. and you're up against the tree or in the stand and you become part of that environment, you become so invisible that anything and everything can walk right up to you. So you internally already know it.
You just don't practice it.
Don't practice it on the awake awareness level. It's an internal thing. It's like the thing, the harder you try, the harder it gets. And when you just relax and let it happen, it comes naturally.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's another lesson from them as well. In the environment that they choose, it's harnessing, he quotes it as harnessing life. Harnessing. He's bringing up Tesla. And so that energy...
Nikola Tesla.
Yes, sorry. Nikola Tesla. In harnessing that energy, it produces not only energy, but it produces matter, it produces, period.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part of what we need to learn from them is not only harnessing, but becoming aware of what we're harnessing in our lives. Because if our focus is on life, love, which is also acceptance, if our focus is in that, that's the pool we're drawing from. But if our focus is in the fear, if our focus is in just struggle is the word that comes to my mind, then we are naturally producing more struggle, more fearful situations or things. And it isn't to say that those things aren't real. It's the pool you're drawing from, though. So be a magnet to the positive, he said. Be a magnet to the best part of who you are. Make it a level of accountability within yourself.
Instead of being that neutral energy that's susceptible to everything around you. Be that positive output.
And we all have things happen in our life. And some of those things might look very negative. There's a few things that we could have really dwelled on as being negative, but everything has its polar opposite. If you can see the negative, there's a positive to be seen. You just have to find it. You have to, as he often shows me, flip that quarter over and find the heads, not just the tails, you know. There's two sides to every single thing in this world. And sometimes it's all about learning to find the gift.
Well, I'm ready to go home, take my shoes off, put a light bulb in my mouth, and see if I can make it go off.
If it goes off, we're going to have a tough conversation.
Well, folks, I appreciate you tagging along today. I know we kind of went all over the place, but hopefully you gleaned a little bit of information out of it. We appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next time down the trail.
Thank you.
Bye.